are the most important issues facing women today? Imagine future generations looking back over the newspapers and endless commentary programs from our time, asking that question. What would they be confronted with? What would stand out as the most important and often addressed issues? I think it would be female celebrities calling out to be taken seriously, treated as equals and not to be viewed as sex symbols while stripping off for trashy and degrading magazines. It would be barely clothed celebrities moving on to their upteenth partner, putting pussy hats on their head, throwing temper tantrums that would shame a 2-year-old, and then spitting the dummy over a democratically elected president. Because that's the most important issue facing women today, right? Well, perhaps the aliens and future generations will be forgiven for thinking our most pressing issue is to change little green men to little green women on street walking signs, because that's a very fundamental human rights issue that must be addressed with urgency, isn't it? Well, at least the aliens will feel included. There'll be barely no mention of the fact that there are more women and children being sold into slavery than ever before in human history. Human trafficking numbers are up in the tens of millions, and we could fill newspaper after newspaper with tragic stories of women who are illegally trafficked for sex and servitude, even here in Australia. You do realise this is not just an issue limited to the Yazidi women and ISIS, right? Every man who uses porn, from politicians to judges to tradies to office workers, are fueling this vile and degrading industry which thrives on and abuses trafficked women and children. A tiny minority of women actually choose to become prostitutes, but most women are abused and oppressed despite what your little perverse fantasies try to convince you of. Domestic violence might get some runs on the board as an important women's issue, but only if white males are the perpetrators. If it's an Islamic male leader who justifies violence against women because the Quran says it's okay as a last resort, then that will either be ignored, minimised or excused as a cultural issue. What about the handful of Islamic apologists who promote the veiling of women because barbaric men might treat them like uncovered meat if they don't protect their modesty? Celebrity head coverers never speak out on behalf of the countless women who are forced to wear dehumanising garb against their will. Future generations will study history and realise that we have major hospitals in some states that have dedicated FGM units that treat hundreds of victims of this sort of abuse each year, but will immediately realise the state isn't actually concerned about these girls because there have been less than a handful of prosecutions regarding FGM. Despite the fact more and more victims of this barbaric and cruel practice turn up every day with horrific scars, trauma and complications. But go ahead, snowflakes, don your pussy hats, grab some crayons and pat your puppies, because if your faux offence is much more important than these girls actually having their pussies intact. What about the alarming practice of child brides? This form of child abuse is not only sanctioned under Islam, it is encouraged, as the so-called prophet abused a 6-year-old by taking her as his wife. You do know that all Muslims are commanded to follow his example, whether it's how to go to the toilet, how to pray, how to strike terror into the hearts of unbelievers. History will show that there are many good Muslims who disobey the commands to be violent and oppressive like Muhammad, but it will also show that very few people had the guts to call it out. So this International Women's Day, I won't be putting on a pussy hat. I will be saluting the heroes like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who has endured FGM and forced marriage and has put her life on the line to expose the evil carried out in the name of Islam. I will celebrate women like Noni Darwish and Brigitte Gabriel, and here in Australia, Rita Panahi, who have lived under oppressive Islamic practices and who now shine a spotlight on the reality of women in Islam. I will take time to think about the millions of women and children who are trafficked for the pleasure and indulgences of men who demand porn and prostitutes to satisfy their own selfish lusts. I will give to charities like Destiny Rescue, who are doing what they can to confront such evil. I will celebrate and enjoy the men and women in my life who are decent, fun, sensible and respectful people who live their lives according to common sense values and principles. Men and women who believe in a fair go for everyone, who call out BS when they see it and who actually go about their daily lives making good and healthy choices to treat people with respect but challenge ideas that are ridiculous and dangerous. I hope you can too.